morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wellbeing Pod again. For this episode, we are actually welcoming Tasneem on a topic that's very popular these days, which is resilience. And the title for today is going to be Resilient Minds, a Student's Blueprint for Facing Challenges. So, Tasneem will give a bit more on her background and journey, but just for you to know, she was one of our students a few years back. So, Tasneem, the floor is yours to tell us a bit more about you.
Thank you so much, Devisha, Alina, for having me on this podcast. And it's such a pleasure to be part of it. So as you mentioned, I was once a student. I was part of the second intake of psychology students at Middlesex. So in 2011, we're still in Buntea. Things were still very new, very tiny student population. And since then, my career, my life has taken so many twists and turns. And I think via my story, you can probably determine why resilience became such a important, profound center in my life. So I started out at Middlesex, 2011, psych student, very bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, innocent. After that, for many convoluted reasons, I chose to do an LLM, which doesn't make sense if you look at it. I had my reasoning back in the day. So I did an LLM at Middlesex in international business law and passed, did a great job. After that, I took up a career in sales marketing for a few years. I loved it. It was fun. It gave me skills that I really, really needed. Later on, after COVID, I lost my job. It was a really difficult period. During that time, I also lost my father. He passed away in a motorcycle accident, of all things. And I reconnected with coaching later on in my life. And it's where I decided to be. It was so many ups and downs, so many decisions, so many choices that I had to make that got me to where I am today, to be someone that I'm really proud of and just really happy to be right now.
That's an amazing path, Tasneem. It's actually in line, with the theme that we're talking about. So it's really a testimony to resilience, what you've been through. This is in strength as well.
Thank you so much.
Well, Alina now will maybe have a few questions of her own that she would like to ask you on your journey, more delving more in depth in your journey, but also for you to share those little bits of knowledge and tips for us to learn from.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Tasneem, for such. So, reflecting on your journey, are there specific mindset or shift contribute to building resilience as a student?
As a student, so there were many opportunities. First of all, before jumping into that, I think it's really important to clarify what resilience really is. The Google definition would be a person's ability to get up after they fall, which, logically it makes sense.
Okay, good.
So first of all, before jumping into the mindset shifts and for students, I think it's really important to clarify what resilience really is. The Google definition of resilience would be the ability to get up when you've fallen down. So after a crisis, a trial, a tribulation, you rise again. And it sounds so much easier than it actually is. Anyone who's been put in that position can attest to that. it takes so much strength. It takes work. It takes commitment to self. Above all that, it takes love of self, a person's sense of self-worth, their value. Where do they lie on that scale? But fundamentally, in my experience, resilience, a person's ability to be resilient comes down to a choice. The choice to stay down on the ground, which to a point is important because all emotions that we experience are valid, are beautiful, are human, and they are part of us. And it's important to give space to any emotions, be it anger, sadness, pain. They have value. They're teaching us something. But after that, we have a choice. Do we want to stay there in those emotions, in that negativity, in that spiral of despair? Or do we want something better for ourselves? And the second that a person has the ability to make that choice, and trust me, everybody has that ability to make that choice. It's a fundamental right. Everybody has that ability to do it. And if somebody says that they don't, there is something blocking them, be it external or internal. It's a permission that they require, usually from themselves. And once they make that choice, they can get up again. They can start making that first step towards doing the work, to becoming a new version of themselves. Because after going through anything traumatic, difficult, a person's rarely the same. As being able to embrace that new version of themselves. So with that definition in mind, I'll circle back to your question, Alina. The mindset shifts and perspectives that a student needs to have to build resilience is to always be aware that they have a choice. Be it a setback from a bad grade, be it struggles that they're dealing with in their personal lives, at home. It could be a boyfriend or a girlfriend, parents going through a divorce, which is incredibly common. Has a choice that they can make, and that is their fundamental right. And embracing that right is so empowering. So I think that would be my answer to that question, just knowing that they have that choice. That's the shift they have to make in their mind. They're not a victim of a circumstance. They have a choice. They can make that choice. And they can take the steps to becoming more and more resilient. And the more they make that choice, the more they exercise that right, the stronger they get, the more resilient they get.
That's indeed a good way to put resilience into perspective, because sometimes the word itself can be complex in understanding, what it entails.
Absolutely.
Now, let's put the word aside. The steps to reaching to a point where you become resilient can also be complex. That's something we'll explore a little bit more in detail as well. So, one thing that I think even me, and I think our students would also join me to ask that aspect is, you did speak about specific mindset shifts that we have to be doing. If we were to make it in terms of a practical example, maybe reflecting on the journey that you had as well as a professional now, but also as an individual, a student before that, is there anything for you that created a specific mind shift set, a specific moment in your life as well, where you saw that, and how maybe it contributed to you building resilience as a student?
So one incident comes to mind, and I'm choosing this incident because it happened while I was a student at Middlesex. I endured a harassment case as a student. I was harassed on campus. It was all very silly, very ridiculous, but it went on for about 2 weeks or so. And it was a time of my life where I didn't feel safe. I was stressed and anxious. I was scared sometimes to be on campus. And at one point, I almost made the choice of not going to campus, not going to class, just not showing up because I was really scared. But at the end of the day, I sat down with it and I decided that I didn't want to give my power away to somebody else who did not deserve it. And I showed up. I showed up and I drew strength from people who rallied around me, who supported me. I drew strength from my own inner resources, my compassion, my patience, my belief in myself, my trust that the issue would be resolved by external resources. So those who were managing the campus a long time ago. And I prevailed. I came out on top. It got to a point where the people that were harassing me came to apologize to me because they had been incited by other people. And again, in that moment, I had a choice to respond with anger and frustration because honestly, that's what I felt. I responded with compassion. I forgave them. It wasn't easy. And just a little insight, till today, every time I meet that person, he still apologizes to me. And this happened years ago. The way I treated the situation allowed me to move forward, allowed other people to move forward. And I grew as a human being. It spoke to my character, how I behaved. Because a person is their actions. Your character is portrayed via your behaviors and your actions. And I chose who I wanted to be in that moment. I didn't want to be angry or frustrated or bitter about the situation. I wanted to be the bigger person. I wanted to be the empowered woman. And that was a really big turning point in my journey.
So if I were to ask a question on this, so let's say, do you think the decisions that we make, so let's say something happens to me, right? So it's already coming with some types of energy, some types of negative consequences or impacts. So resilience would be me choosing to take on board these things into consideration, taking that into my consideration and deciding to do something different with that and move forward. Is that what you would say would be something beneficial for people?
I think the first thing to do would be to remove the self from the situation. Access a neutral position. So there's the first position, that is the self. That is how me, Tasneem, I am experiencing it right now. There's the second position, is the person who's opposite me. And there's the third position, that is neutral. Just a fly on the wall kind of party. And if I can take a step back and look at this from a neutral position, no emotions, no thoughts, no attachment to anything or anyone, and just evaluate everything. Evaluate it for the best possible outcome. What is the outcome that will serve me the best? Serve my well-being the best? Serve the situation the best? And then take the appropriate steps, because once we take that decision, the steps start to become clearer. And if the steps are not clear, then it's probably important to return to that third position and just be neutral, be impartial as possible. And once you can start taking the steps, take actions, because as we know, the past and the future, they don't exist. It's only the present moment that exists. when I say being present in the moment, it's not just about being mindful and zen. It's about the actions we take right now. And if we take those actions and that's best serve us, we set ourselves up for more enjoyable life. A life where we have better control, we feel empowered through our choices.
Mm-hmm.
That empowerment increases our resilience.
And it also increases, our power to make decisions, better decisions for ourselves as well. Self-esteem
Absolutely.
also gets better at this, I'm pretty sure. It affects so many things. Mm.
So, if maybe you don't know, but thoughts follow emotions.
Mm.
And being able to feel better about ourselves, feel more confident in our decision making,
Mm-hmm.
have higher self-worth, increase our sense of self-value.
Mm.
Our thoughts go in a better direction. They don't spiral negatively. And we become better people for that.
Indeed. So I think to go back to the fact that resilience, we picture it as being that complex thing, while it's probably a skill that we can train ourselves to learn. Just like, I don't know, how maybe we'll learn how to be organized, for example, right? But we train ourselves to be more resilient by adopting these strategies that you're talking about right now. So maybe every time something happens and we realize that it's happening, we put ourselves in that neutral mode, knowing that we're going to assess the situation in a matter that will remain impartial to these experiences to some extent.
So I choose to see resilience as a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Like we go to the gym, we're going to, I don't know, I want really toned arms.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go to the gym every day, every week or whatever, and I'm going to use I don't know, the deadlift, the barbell or the dumbbell, whatever it is. And I'm going to flex that muscle. And the more I do it with, let's say, 3 kilo weight, the more I will get used to it. And then I can increase the weight to 5 kilos, to 7 kilos, etc. And resilience is just like that muscle. We overcome, we are faced with situations every single day. Be it something as simple as missing the bus. I've seen it happen. It can send a person into an utter spiral, not knowing, oh my God, I'm going to be late. Oh my God, I messed up. I can't do anything. And they spiral so hard. Or if they have a strong resilience muscle, they can switch to problem solving mode right away. Say, okay, I missed my bus. Do I know anyone in the area that can give me a lift? Something like that. Or I don't know. Deadlines are approaching and just not the most organized. I know I wasn't the most organized student. Start panicking and feeling stressed, and that emotion takes over to a point where I've seen it push people to a sense of, I'm a failure. I can't do this anymore. And rather than spiraling that way, if we flex that muscle enough and just say, okay, that position, neutral position, what do I have to do to get things done? Where do I start? Instead of falling into that sense of overwhelm, which honestly, it's human. It's very, very human. But like I said earlier, we don't need to be a victim of the deadlines, of the circumstances. We can just take that 2 seconds. It takes 2 seconds. What do I do? What do I do right now? And the first thing that comes to your mind is probably the first thing that you should be doing. Don't make the lists. Don't do all the organizing. Because I know I am guilty of this. I fall into that pattern of I need to make a list of everything that I need to do. And then I look at that list. I'm taking a nap. But the first thing that comes to your mind, just do it. Because we now know from a lot of amazing writers, podcasters like Mel Robbins, that it's not motivation that gets things done. Motivation comes after we start taking action.
What do you think comes first?
Chicken or the egg? What comes first? What comes first? Do it. Just do one little thing. Just even if it's something as simple as turning on the laptop and writing the title of an essay. Just write the title. And I remember a tip that my lecturer, Prerna, gave us at the time when we started writing our dissertations. Just write it. Doesn't matter what it is. You just read some journal articles or whatever it is that you're doing and just write. It doesn't matter if it's referenced, if it's punctuated, if it's good or not good. Just vomit it out on the page. Because it gets things going, it gets things moving. And that energy starts to then flow. You build up that confidence in your writing, in what you're doing. Stop believing in yourself. You see things, whatever it is, as soon as things start moving, you just get motivated to start doing it. Instead of getting stuck in the number, the volume of tasks, or the magnitude of the task ahead of you.
That's true. I actually saw a post recently that said, if we already depend too much on motivation, we might have already lost. So it's better to build habits and systems that are stronger than our feelings, our emotions. Because sometimes we tend to let the emotions take on the lead, so we do things according to how it feels rather to what needs to be done. So we let the emotion play the main character, basically. And while emotions are very important, yes, they help us make decisions, but sometimes if we let them govern everything that we have to do, every decisions that we have to take, then we might not necessarily take decisions that benefit us the best way, right?
Absolutely. And I believe Daniel Goleman calls that emotional hijacking. Because we are human beings, we are feeling beings. Our emotions govern a lot of the decisions that we make. Even though some of them come across as cold and calculating, pure logic, there is some emotion that goes into it somewhere. And a lot of the times that is a good thing, because intuition is very, very real, especially for the big life-changing decisions. But getting lost in them, that's when it's a problem, because energy flows where attention goes. So if your attention is on too many things, it's everywhere, which is what happens as a student. I remember my experience, especially deadline period. Have so many essays backed up. There's exams around the corner, and don't know if I should revise, if I should do my essay, if I should do my assignment, my dissertation. The energy, the attention was everywhere. My energy was going everywhere. I felt exhausted, and honestly, that's a big thing that contributes to student exhaustion. Just trying to manage all these tasks in our minds at the same time, and just taking them on one at a time, because as we now know, there's no such thing as multitasking. Either you do one thing really, really well, or you do many things poorly. So it's very contrary to what we've been brought up believing. Yes, I remember my mom always telling me, yeah, I'm a multitasker. I can do everything. I can do so many things at the same time. And I remember that feeding into a sense of failure for me, because I couldn't focus on 10 things at the same time. But then when I decided to focus all my energy onto one thing at a time and do it well, it settled me. I felt centered. And that sense of achievement that I had when I completed one assignment, I felt so much better rather than having 5 essays poorly written submitted and getting a low grade.
So, sometimes we might realize that students, they have got the academics maybe under control. So usually it will be they've got it figured out how they will study, they're getting the grades that they do want to get, and so on. But sometimes something personal happens, and it's something that affects them. It could be a breakup, losing someone. It could be, I don't know, something external happening around them as well, like fights in the neighborhood, anything that can trigger some kinds of negative emotions, right? So then it's usually some things that could be beside their control, so out of their control. And even then, in these particular situations, they will have to apply resilience to maybe come out of it. So, what would be maybe your tips or like steps that you have, or anything that you have that could be helpful for those young people to step back up again?
I can't tell you how deeply I relate to this question, because as from my second year as an undergrad student onwards, my parents fought constantly. And it was a tough situation. But if if I wanted to provide some tips from my personal experience, they may not apply. But if I could maybe provide insight as a coach to develop that resilience, the first thing I would say is never judge yourself. You're a person. You are experiencing these things. If your performance at university is getting impacted, it can happen. Don't judge yourself. You're a human. You're fallible. And that's what's beautiful. Your emotions are valid. They hold space. But very much recognize that you're not alone. You're really not alone. I know from personal experience, I know how isolating it can feel when the parents are fighting. For me, I believed that nobody would understand. I would have a lot of trouble articulating exactly what was going on inside me. Later down the line, I found that there are people in a tribe that I created myself that don't necessarily need to understand, but were willing to be by my side. And don't need too much. I know it's sometimes it's so easy to say, I just wish people could get it. I wish I didn't have to explain it and to repeat the story over and over again. I wish they could just understand it like that. It doesn't work like that. Other people can only understand things from their own perspectives. So a lot of the time people believe that if somebody hasn't gone through the exact same thing or something as close as possible to it, they won't understand. It's okay if they don't, as long as they love you, as long as they're just willing to be kind. So choosing your tribe is so important. A tribe that cares and loves and is compassionate. And on that same note, being compassionate towards the self. So not judging the self. Be compassionate towards self. Be patient. And realize that you are not your situation. You are experiencing the situation. Being able to detach from that is so important. You are not your situation. The parents fight. The relationship is not ideal. It's not conducive. Sharing from a personal point of view again, when I was in university, I had an abusive boyfriend. So fighting parents, abusive boyfriend, really not a good combination. And it was tough, but when I was compassionate towards myself, not judging myself, when I opened myself up to people and connected with a tribe that was around me, but I wasn't letting them in, that's what enabled me to rise, to become stronger. Mm-hmm. And to also trust it's part of the part of the journey, as much as it feels that this situation is so permanent, it's never ending, this tunnel is so long. And I know the expression, there's light at the end of the tunnel, but the situation is just never going to be permanent. You're going to finish university one day, you're going to get a job, you're going to move out of your parents' house. You don't know what your parents may decide. If they're fighting, maybe they resolve their issues and family works out. Maybe they choose to separate, and even though it's painful, it may be for the best. So bringing in that state of acceptance as well, it's so important. So maybe to summarize, is no self-judgment, self-compassion, opening up and connecting with a tribe that's around you, even if they don't go through what you're going through, they are willing to hold space and love and care for you. And finally, just knowing that the situation is never going to be permanent. As much as, I don't know, the heartbreak over the cheating boyfriend feels so overwhelming. Is there a thing? It's not, because these things are a part of life. They are not your life in its entirety. They are contributing to the person that you will become. And trust me when I say that person you will become is going to be phenomenal, beyond your imagination. And just be patient, because you're going to meet that person sooner than you think.
Indeed, those are very wise tips, I would call them, like to see a different way to see ourselves. Because sometimes what happens is when something negative or something impactful happens to us, we tend to go into that zone where we blame ourselves, like our responsibility in the situations and so on. So having that mindset shift where you are like, okay, I am probably not as bad in that story, or maybe accepting that, okay, we've made our mistakes. How can I improve from this? How can I move on and just get better at that point where I am at? Yeah, those are very good starting points, I would say, to build that resilience. Alina, do you have any questions on your side?
No, I'm good. I'm gonna take some pick up from what you said. Like as a student, I think I can use it for myself, especially when there's so much deadline going on and you have so much to do. You don't know where to focus.
Yeah,
that's true.
Which one to do first?
your attention goes, your energy flows where your attention goes. So you have the power to choose where to place your attention. And once your attention is on that one thing, that's where your energy, all your strength will flow to. And in practicing that, we slow down, become more centered, and we take better control over what's going on around us. And that chaos that we feel, it gets smaller and smaller. It's not that the chaos is shrinking, it's that we are getting bigger and able to hold it even better. We get stronger. And that's the resilience that's building inside us. It doesn't come overnight. There is not one person on this planet that was born being resilient. Now, I'm not saying that person has to go through trauma and just horrible events in their lives to become resilient. It's one way to go about it. It's not necessarily the most healthy, because a person can be left with some unhealthy coping mechanisms, and that's a whole other kettle of fish. But it comes from the choices that we make. The choices that we make in a situation that could maybe make or break us. And it's not necessarily a situation where we are being abused, so I have the choice to stay or go. It can be a situation where I can choose to fail or succeed. I can do really well in this presentation, or I can get overwhelmed by my emotions and my stress and people telling me what I'm supposed to be, or I can choose myself. And that's something people... Who are your top 5 favorite people? 9 out of 10, I'm pretty sure a person wouldn't say that they are in their top 5 favorite people. So choosing yourself, making those decisions, it's all contributes to becoming more and more resilient.
I never thought of it that way, honestly. If you would ask me what's my favorite top 5, you're right. I wouldn't have thought of me among these people. And we live with ourselves every day, so it makes sense for us to choose us first.
A lot of people place their locus of control outside of themselves.
Mm.
We have been groomed and trained and conditioned to do that, to think of everyone before ourselves, especially women.
Yeah.
We're taught that we have to put everybody's needs first, and we come last.
Mm.
And maybe that served a purpose at some point in some women's lives. I'm guessing. I choose to believe that everything serves a purpose, that nothing is ridiculous.
We keep the hope going.
Exactly. I choose to believe in humanity.
Yeah.
But we gotta choose ourselves sometimes. And because if we don't put ourselves first, we don't serve ourselves first, how do we then serve others? If I am not feeling strong, if I'm not feeling empowered, if I'm not feeling confident and stable, it's difficult for me to serve other people. They say you can't pour from an empty cup.
Mm.
If I'm drained and exhausted, I can't help clients. I can't serve them to the best of my ability. I will be giving 50% or 60% of my best self. So when I have clients, if what I need is to, I don't know, go for a run or take a nap or something in between, that's what I do as a coach.
Mm.
As students, if I remember actually doing this once, I was sick as a dog. I had a cold, I had a fever, and I was trying to do assignments. It wasn't working. I took a nap and I hammered out my assignments by the end of the day. So I chose myself in that moment instead of choosing, oh, if I don't do this well, my mom is going to be disappointed in me and everybody's going to look down on me like because I'm a failure. I chose what served me best.
Mm.
And again, it doesn't mean always take a nap every 5 minutes. That's not what I'm saying. Sometimes the situation calls for it. And having the emotional intelligence to know that I am drained, to know that I am I've gone past my limit, is really, really, really important because it's hard to be resilient when you're constantly drained. When you're constantly drained, it's probably when you're going to make the most or the least self-serving decisions, the decisions that serve you the least. And when I say that the decision serves you, it doesn't mean that it's being selfish. It just means that, you're not putting yourself dead last. You are thinking about your benefit, that you can be a better person and have a better life.
Exactly. I wouldn't have put it in any better way out there. Maybe before we part ways, if you were to give maybe a message or something for someone to get out of a challenging situation right now, what would it be?
Choose you.
Yeah.
In my experience, people that we place above ourselves, they can leave for X, Y, Z reason. Maybe there's a disagreement, a fight. Maybe life takes you in different directions. But choose you. You're not being selfish. We're taught to believe that choosing ourselves is selfish, but it's not. Choose you. Choose you. Have that sense. Believe that you deserve to be chosen by yourself. Because I'm sitting there just waiting, like in sports teams, waiting for somebody to pick you. It's not going to happen. Choose you. Choose to believe in your ability. And something that really, really served me, and it's a message I hammer home with my clients, is that all the resources that you need are inside you. They are there. No matter how dark and desperate a situation may seem, everything you need is inside you. Your determination, your resilience, your commitment, your compassion for self, your patience, your strength, it's all inside. Just take a second, sit with yourself, say, what do I need right now? What tools do I have? Sometimes looking back, something I like to do with my clients is it's an exercise where they reflect on their past situation that was difficult, identify what tools and resources they use, be it external, so be it maybe a support system, friends, family, or internal, commitment to self, an unwavering belief that things will change, and see how much of that they can apply to their present. Are there additional resources that they can think of outside of what they already have, or outside of what they've already used? And believe me, it is there. Everything you need, it's right there. It's right there. I like to say it's in the chest cavity. It's like a little lockbox, little Pandora's box. And you have the key to open it. Trust me, it's in your back pocket. No matter how much you believe that your power is not in your hands, it really is. And that power comes through choice. Choice to give it away to the situation, to other people. Choice to claim it, hold it, and use it for your own development and growth. Because at the end of the day, nothing else really matters. It's about how much you want to go, where you want to go, how you're going to get there, and just the person you want to become. At the beginning of this talk, I told you I've become someone that I am so proud of. Have I failed? Yes. Setbacks, so many. Have I gotten lost? All the time. I've been abused. I've been in really bad situations. I've made poor choices. But they've all made me into the person that I am today. I love who I am. I've become a professional that I admire. Still building my own practice, but I know I will get there. And I have faith, I have belief, trust in myself, in my skills, and I'm going to do that. So just remember your lockbox, your Pandora's box.
Thank you so much for this whole session, actually, Tasneem. The whole of it is something so positive, but also so down to earth, I would say. Something that we easily can apply and maybe reflect on our own lives too. Just take one thing and then make something better from this point on. I think for me personally, I'm coming out of this session with choosing, to believe that I can do more than my self-limiting beliefs have told me to rely on. So thank you so much for this wonderful session.
That's really relatable as well.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.